Okay, Yerko, as you know, you've got 15 minutes to present. After your presentation, you'll have a seat. There's a pen and paper there if you want to make notes on the questions we ask. Okay, you can start now.
Good afternoon, teachers. Today I'm going to be presenting my research study, which is called Willingness to Communicate Enhanced by Group Work. First, to give you a little context, this study took place in Escuela Básica Benjamín Vicuña Maquena. This school is located at Santiago, and it was a 7th grade. And my type of study is a positivist one. So the first task to carry out this research was to identify a research problem. That's why through different lessons I recorded field notes in order to see if I saw something that maybe was not working as it should be working, or an element that caught my attention. And that's how I identified this certain pattern or structure that kept repeating throughout every lesson, which was basically the teacher asking the students if they had finished the worksheet they were working on last class, and if they hadn't, which was most of the cases, they would have to finish it during class. After that, the teacher would give the new worksheet, and they would continue working on it during class. This same structure kept repeating throughout the whole semester, and I didn't see any warm-up, I didn't see scaffolding, I didn't see group work, and I saw that the students were really demotivated with this methodology. So that's where the idea of addressing these two concepts of group work and willingness to communicate arose from. Okay, so looking through the literature, I found that these two elements were addressed, but they were not addressed as a single phenomenon, but they were treated separately as two different concepts. So that's why the purpose of this study is to identify, to determine if group work enhances WTC. More explicitly, the general objective is to determine if group work does or does not enhance WTC on the L2 when learning English as a foreign language. And the hypothesis corresponds to the use of group work increases students' WTC in the L2. In order to find the relevance for my study and in order to find the bridge in knowledge, I had to review literature and different sources. In the case of theoretical sources, I found that Brown states that when students feel that they have social support, they are likely to have higher levels of WTC. That means that if we can provide group work and group work provides social support, we would have students with higher levels of WTC inside our classrooms. And he also states that when students work in groups, they can come to each other's aid and they share information. So it is a great strategy to be used inside the classroom. In the case of empirical sources, I found that Maftun and Siafar state that educational research has focused on the observable rather than the unobservable. What do we understand by unobservable? All the psychological states of the students. That includes beliefs, attitudes, their motivation, and the concept which is of relevance for this study, which is WTC. I found that this study has political relevance, as UNESCO states that there are three main aspects of global education. There is the cognitive aspect, the behavioral, and the socio-emotional aspect. Within the socio-emotional aspect, we can find WTC, and we can see that this study would involve all the countries around the globe as it is part of global education. It also has a social relevance, as Mineduk states that education must promote the integral and permanent formation of citizens. As we know, English is a compulsory subject here in the education of Chile. So it is part of this process of formation of citizens. That's why it has also a social relevance. Regarding the methodology, the adopted paradigm was positivist and specifically post-positivist. And the approach adopted was quantitative, as the data that was collected was in the form of numbers, and it was collected through measurement scales. The procedure went as follows. First, I had to determine the initial level of students' WTC. Then I would apply the treatment, which included group work during the while activities. The students had to assign different roles in order to complete an assignment. That way I would make sure that all of them would work, because otherwise they wouldn't have been able to complete the assignment. And then I would identify a student's final level of WTC. Regarding the population and sample method, 14 students from a 7th grade participated in this study. and the sample method was the inter-class method. Why this method? Because according to Maki and Gas, on second language research, we need to use inter-classes for our studies, because we cannot assign randomly which participant goes into which group. Regarding the research materials, I use Makrowski's WTC scale. As we can see, there are different statements, and the students needed to assign a score from 0, meaning never, to 100, meaning always, to each of the statements. For the sake of time and to make sure that all of them understood, when I was taking the pre and post test, I stood in front of the classroom and read each statement out loud. That way we would make sure that they understood what each statement meant. And the data analysis techniques were a t-test in order to see if there was any difference after applying the treatment, and a Cohen's analysis to see the size of this effect. Regarding trustworthiness, internal validity has been ensured as it is a published instrument by Makrowski and Richmond. That means that it has been proved to measure what it is intended to measure. Regarding external validity, if we were to apply these results to another course in the same school, then we would have similar results, as it would be a similar context. But if we wanted to apply these results to a school in a different city or in a different country, we would need to bear in mind some considerations, such as the fact that this was an EFL classroom with students from a 7th grade and in a public school. Objectivity is also ensured as I use a standardized instrument. It was the same for all of the students, and also I had a controlled sampling technique, as I had to find it before applying the treatment. Reliability has been explicitly stated by the authors that might vary from not 85 to not 90, so it has also been ensured. Here we can see the findings, and in the pretest we can see that the highest score is of 60%, while the lowest is of 20%. On the other hand, on the post-test, the highest score increased up to 65%, and the lowest also increased up to a 33.75%. So we can see that there was a difference after applying the treatment. T-test also tells us that there was a difference, as we can see that the t-value is of 12.71. And the chances of this result being by randomness is also really low, as we can see that the value of p is of 0.00. Cohen's also tells us that there was a difference, as the value that was given was at 0.82. And in the labels we can see that from 0.8 it is already labeled as having a large effect. In this sense, the hypothesis was fulfilled, as willingness to communicate was proved to increase through the use of group work. Nevertheless, there were some limitations of the study. For example, there was a lot of noise during recess, because when the students were taking the post-test, all the other courses of the school were on recess. So that might have influenced the students inside the classroom taking the test. And also the lack of time. It was not enough time to carry out the post-test and the pre-test and the intervention, so another limitation of this study was not having enough time. Regarding the contribution of findings, the breaching knowledge has been partially covered, as I worked with a pre-experimental group. That means the same group of people with different scores assigned. And the ideal scenario for a study like this is to work with 2 different groups of people. So some future directions for research are to use experimental groups and also to perform the lesson and test through different interventions. That way we would see how willingness to communicate behaves over time through group work. Regarding the metacognitive analysis and specifically the conceptualization of the teacher researcher's role, I found that the teacher's role includes many dimensions. For example, we need to plan lessons, we need to design materials, we need to do administrative work, but also we have a more humanitarian task, which is promoting values and virtues among our students. So it includes many dimensions. Regarding specifically to seminar, I learned that it is important to be professional. Having to deliver reports on very strict deadline taught me that you need to be committed to with what you're doing, otherwise you wouldn't be able to reach your objectives. And also because of the tremendous responsibility that involves being a model to young children, it is important that we always keep a professional attitude. And regarding the practicum, I learned that we shouldn't disregard our students' beliefs, because this is a shared job and it's not just us giving resources, but the students need to take these resources and work on with them. So it is a shared job, as I said. I also could identify some of my strengths, weaknesses, and challenges, and I found that one of my main strengths is the ability to come up with a lesson plan. The teaching courses here at the university gives us a lot of ideas and suggestions for activities. And also we have YouTube and we have hundreds of web pages with ideas of activities, so it's not really difficult for me to come up with a lesson plan. I also could identify my main weakness, which is not being able to express myself orally clearly, because I saw myself many times during the practicum using Spanish, because I couldn't explain certain concepts or words to the students, and obviously using Spanish in the English class is not the best strategy. So that has become a challenge for me, and a way of working on this challenge is to do role plays. I thought that it would be a good idea to do role plays here at the university with my classmates, so that they would be the students and I would be the teacher. That way I would get immediate feedback from people who are interested in the field and who know about the topic. Here we can see the references.
Thank you.